Bwahahaha. My name is Amy2 and welcome back to Talk to Transformer. This is practically all I've been making videos of right now, but that will change soon. It's just this is really easy to edit. Anyway, complete text. Amy2 watched Moon clean his car after he had used a pair of flea collars to catch some mice in his yard. What? He didn't expect her to ask him to write up a prescription for a house drug she wasn't sure she needed. He wrote it at 3:25 a.m. That's early. And when she didn't bring it to the hospital until 5:20 a.m., he resigned himself to asking her about a prescription she was more likely to need than any present he could give her. "I didn't know what to say," he said, "so I just said, okay, but I just want you to know I was thinking about you." His calls continued and have now reached 1 million people. What? Amy2 watched Moon clean his car when suddenly she heard him put something in his pocket. How do you have such good hearing? As she continued to talk to him, she noticed that the ink he had was brown and thin, and most likely had once been on his belt. What in the world? Moon then added that he was a big fan of Android 8. Android 8, his girlfriend. What? She invited him to meet her on the following day in order to thank him for his generosity and let him know he is free to crash on her floor. What? She believed Android 8 would do him great good and said she wasn't sure how the mayor could do such a thing to him. "I guess I should thank you for any possible good you could have done to me," she said. "I'm sorry I ruined your day." Moon admitted he apologized to ... What? Android 8 is an operating system. What? As soon as you add the "when suddenly" part, everything gets better. Amy2 watched Moon clean his car when suddenly an object appeared near the car, near the top of the windshield. It was black, he said. The object, shaped like a TV set, flew away quickly and vanished. "That scared me to death," Lee said. Maribel said her husband and daughter had difficulty sleeping after the sighting. "It looks like a freaking TV. What's so scary about it?" The next morning, she awoke to her husband yelling at her, "Stop playing with those stars! There's a flying saucer over here." What? "I've never seen anything that big and black," she said. It didn't look like a plane. I didn't think it was a plane at all." Kelly Johnson, 38, took his daughters to the Like, excuse me? Like, how scary exactly is a TV? How scary is this? Like, seriously. Amy2 watched Moon clean his car when suddenly he heard a voice on the car radio. "Well, duh! If it's on, that's what you're gonna get. Come on, we're gonna eat." Shaken but not broke. This article or section is incomplete. Please improve the article or discuss the issue on the talk page. Jake and Lindsay Bittner first met when they were visiting a Walmart. There, Jake and Lindsay bought a beanbag chair from the toy aisle. The two moved on to the microwave, though they were quickly disappointed when the coffee didn't melt. Over and over again, they watched the beans grind away, and then get out. For years before, Jake finally asked Lindsay if they could meet. After several failed attempts, What in the world was that? Excuse me. Amy too watched Moon clean his car when suddenly she felt the brush scraping up against her with renewed desperation. Excuse me? As she fought, another brush caught her by surprise. She screamed in the depth of her guilt. What? And the brush fell, going into the stone wall behind her as she watched the banger slither away. Excuse me? Amy felt her fire explode in all the wrong directions and collapsed onto the ground. It was only then that she noticed a second car was parking itself behind her house. Amy raised her hand to the sky and yelled, "What's going on?" before collapsing again. What? She managed to get to her knees and reached back to touch the car that had spooked her in the driveway. And the male hand was caught in the clasp of a shirt. What is this garbage? This stuff is amazing. Moon was trying to fix the windshield of his car with a blow torch. Yep, I think he classifies as being insane. Moon was trying to fix the windshield of his car with a blowtorch. When he did that, he didn't realize that his helmet was embedded into the headrest of his seat. And that this, in turn, was mashing the headrest of the passenger seat against the driver's head, causing significant bleeding. Doctors at the hospital told you that the blowtorch resulted in his brain being clogged with scar tissue, and that he would probably never drive again. Now, 2 weeks later, he's back at work but is still feeling severe headaches. He has been given a blank check that told that he was going to be fine. A nice surprise. Yu's former employer, the kite shop in Tongdam. What? Moon was trying to fix the windshield of his car with a blowtorch. He accidentally set his car on fire in the parking lot of the Seals Club, east of Spokane. Investigators said he tried to extinguish the fire with the blowtorch. He tried to extinguish the fire with the blowtorch. Yeah, like that's gonna work. He hit this mark, and then I jumped on him, and I was yelling at him to calm down, and he screamed, and I took my frustrations out on him, and he couldn't hold it. The neighbor, Bob Hawley. Police are still investigating the fire. As of Wednesday, the Washington State Patrol released little information and said they have not made any arrests in the case. Police say at the time of the incident, Moon was not under the influence of any drugs or ... Clearly, he's just a plain idiot. That's like trying to put a fire out with gasoline. Like, you tried to extinguish the fire with a blowtorch. Yeah, like that's gonna freaking work. Moon was trying to fix the windshield of his car with a blowtorch, and he pushed his hand into the cigarette juice to clean off his fingers. What? What? Who does that? Who in the world does that? Mr. Juno, he arrived at when he's home around 3:30 p.m. for an update on his son, who has been detained since mid-November. when he and his family brought their son into a police station in Inugi, according to Jake Halla, a Weni family friend and a father of 3 other children who was also taken to the Inugi police station. The family said they were preparing to bring Mr. Junai's children to the United States as part of the United Nations Children's Fund, but no official documents have been prepared to allow them to ... I like how he pushed his hand into the cigarette juice to clean it off his fingers. Like, what? Moon was trying to fix the windshield of his car with a blowtorch, but the blowtorch would not stay on because the flame had caught the black plastic on the windshield. Eyes blinking, he reached down into the muddy tire rubber field and pulled out a piece of plastic that had not been fully burned away and gingerly wrapped it around the lamppost. He waved it back and forth while he was at it, eventually having to replace the blowtorch nozzle that he was trying to use to fix his windshield. It was a fail-safe system. After all, he was now too far behind. And after another few minutes, while it still burned steadily, he noticed it had begun to completely deflate. What? Moon was trying to fix the windshield of his car with a blowtorch. I had set it down, and when I turned around, the flames were still licking the wheel from the blowtorch. What? Moon said, my first thought was that I was gonna burn my car. But as the flames inched even closer, Moon realized he needed to survive. What the hell? So he reached for a cellular phone and called 911. I'm the only witness, but I'm the one who pulled this off. I'm the one who did this. I saved your life. I did something for you that none of us has ever thought we would, Moon told the dispatcher. What? You're telling this to the police? In June, 2 weeks after the car... What in the world? Sledder was watching a movie on VHS. Excuse me? Sledder was watching a movie on VHS in front of the screen, when suddenly the doors behind him swung open, revealing all the other aliens. Holy cow, he cried, rushing over to see what they were all saying. Then he saw this giant dad, Big Daddy. What are you doing in the back room talking a movie? Big Daddy asked. The giant black alien jerking his head towards the front. Don't you know it's against the rules? John asked. That's not like standing up straight and pointing to the window. It's Friday night. Tonight's the big one. Well, I guess they've got a deal there, Big Daddy said. First time I've seen a movie. ... Excuse me, but what? Sledder was watching a movie on VHS when suddenly another mouse came skittering across the screen and launched itself straight at Sledder. Attempting to smash his head into a cliff or onto the nearest desk, the couple watched in horror as the snatcher's fragile body flailed for a few seconds before falling to the floor. The thief simply stood there, staring at the point of impact as if trying to find some meaning in it. His heart slowly sank as he needed to find his mother for help. He needed to find a way to distract the mouse from his vendetta against his former colleague, and all he had to do was steal the office's TV. Unfortunately for him, the mouse hadn't been counting on his co-workers stealing. ... Why was there a thief in this? Sledder was watching a movie on VHS when suddenly he heard a loud noise. It was like a rocket explosion. I fell over. I couldn't see anything, he said. Then I looked down, and there was a hole in the ice. I thought it was the movie that I was watching, but it was the balloon floating down. Sledder said he didn't notice until later that the alarm system in the bathroom had been triggered. Which is standard practice at the vacation rental. And some guests had jumped in the lake to rescue other people stuck in the ice. The lights went out in the room and the door slammed shut, he said. I went out to the bridge, ... Sledder was watching a movie on VHS when suddenly an aggressive liquid fell on his leg. Fracture, stupid kid! Someone in the theater shouted. Inside the theater, a 25-year-old bartender was showing Sledder around the theater, telling him to take a seat so she could sneak a glass of water into his water bottle. A few other people saw this, and one or two even helped Sledder up. A few more guys in the lobby went out of their way to help too, as did a female cashier at a nearby bar. A cashier at a nearby bar, wouldn't that just be a bartender? By the time the movie ended, Sledder was surrounded by 4 guys with a bat. Some wearing bandanas and covering their faces. One man tried to give Sledder ... I like how it's like an aggressive liquid fell on his leg. And it's like some random person says, "Fracture, stupid kid!" Sledder was watching a movie on VHS when suddenly the movie changed and he felt an electric shock. While at first the shock was purely aesthetic, in a few minutes it had achieved the kind of power he had never experienced before. Although he was able to use the shock to help with his day, the perception of having lost his brain and oh man, the perception of having lost his brain and, more importantly, his humanity became all too apparent. Sledder swore he had never felt such powerful feelings since his initiation. Sledder was able to use the electric shock to help his day, but he knew that in order to achieve this kind of raw power, he felt the shock had to have its origins in some mythical place beyond his knowledge. When Sledder heard the term ... oh man, that one was amazing. The perception of having lost his brain. Sledder was watching a movie on VHS when suddenly a leg came out of the front of the seat. He immediately grabbed it in his own leg and pulled himself from the seat. He then switched to reruns of Night at the Museum and Blue Clues. He began yelling at himself for moving the leg in the first place. Finally, he got to the hardware store where he bought a utility knife. At home, SARS painted the leg and used a vise to ensure it was still there and secured it with a safety pin. What is this trash? He also thought it might be a good idea to try running his hands over it to make sure it was still in place. At first, he didn't notice anything abnormal, but later he noticed that his hand was ... What? Sledder was watching a movie on VHS when suddenly something grabbed her hand. She looked down to see what had pulled a giant chimp out of the doorway of the kitchen, clawed at her hand, and she had felt the hand on her breast. Hey, Sledder! Okay, what in the world? So I was listening to a movie last night. I was wondering if you had heard about this cute chimp that kept the food warm. And even more cute than that, he only had 2 arms and 2 legs. What? She looked up to see another woman in her 40s sitting in the seat behind her, looking nervous. That reminds me, how'd you make that at the kitchen? I wasn't sure if ... Big Boy and Buddy were setting up computers in their spaceship. Excuse me, what is this? Big Boy and Buddy were setting up computers in their spaceship, making the experimental quill that the doctor would use later. However, they were interrupted by a swarm of stag beetle. The doctor grabbed a stapler to stop the flying insects and sliced his hand. The glass cut in half as a result. After that incident, the doctor forgot all about the quill. Buddy told the doctor the earliest edition he had, but he had forgot it. Buddy stated that that would have been something special, something to show his early days as a Time Lord. The doctor, knowing what would happen, reminded Buddy that he was a Time Lord in the modern era. And Buddy was a doctor. The doctor. ... Big Boy and Buddy were setting up computers in their spaceship when suddenly a massive ship appeared from above. The giant ship exploded with a bright flash. The giant ship came at them with sheer power, pushed by energy. The giant ship blew both entities out of their seats and damaged their spacecraft. The giant ship landed. Buddy and Flyboy... Why does it create names like this? Were unable to evacuate because of the damaged power system of the ship. The giant ship came back and caused a second giant ship to appear above them. This huge spacecraft was faster, tougher, and taller than the first. The giant ship exploded with a superb flash. This giant ship flew at Buddy and Flyboy again. This time the two beings got out of the way. The two entities started to fly through the air. What in the world? Excuse me? What? Space drugs. Big Boy and Buddy were setting up computers in their spaceship when suddenly 3 rapacious aliens swept in on the drug smuggling robot. Space pirates. Hey Dad, I found these new space drugs. My twin sister, Shonda, quickly ran to take me to the computer in her bedroom. It was basically the computer from Buck Rogers. Excuse me? And I was a total nerd about the old cartoons. Buck Rogers is not a cartoon. Shonda was instantly gone. I followed the 5 lights to the living room and sat on the couch and reached up to touch my dome. Excuse me? A nice touch by the pioneers. From there, I touched the computer in her bedroom, and there were all sorts of places to type in commands. There was already a response in her heart in jumble, but she said, ... What is this? Hey Dad, I found these new space drugs. Yeah. I got some new space drugs. Oh, man, yeah. Hey, man. Them space drugs, yeah. Big Boy and Buddy were setting up computers in their spaceship when suddenly Buddy's father came from the shadows and grabbed a cat by its tail. Buddy, freaking out, and suddenly he could feel the cats below him scared of the thing who had just came into their home and scared the living out of Buddy. Buddy screamed and ran in fear to his parents' bedroom, where he hid under his bed until he felt comfortable enough to get up. Buddy went to the bedroom to find that his dad had grabbed the green cat from under the bed. Buddy was traumatized and remembers saying to himself, "You know, I am a psychic. You can't let this happen. I can see evil. That's why I've got psychic powers." ... Excuse me, what? I like how his father just came out of the shadows and grabbed a cat by its tail. And somehow this traumatized Buddy. What is this? Big Boy and Buddy were setting up computers in their spaceship when suddenly a Star Destroyer appeared in the sky, causing them to disappear. The two arrived at the planet of Baratia, where their position became known to the alien resistance. They discovered that they had been infected by the virus. You mean Corona? Furious, the vampires escaped into space. Excuse me? Before they could escape, the resistance recruited a group of giant spiders, which quickly overwhelmed them. The resistance attacked the vampires in an attempt to kill them. Eventually, the vampires broke away and attacked the resistance. The vampires, who were not using the wings, fought the spider rifles with guns and shrapnel. The spider rifles made great use of their guns, making several laser blasts in quick succession. One vampire ... Why are there space vampires and space spiders in this thing? Say, what? But anyway, I'm going to have to end this video here. If you liked it, please subscribe. And I'll see you, and go look at my other videos. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.